Hello and welcome. Today I'm adding Turrican 2, the final fight, from the Turrican collection on the Evercade to my ever-growing list where I rank every Evercade game ever. Originally released in 1991 for the Amiga, Atari ST and I believe a couple of other formats, Turrican 2 essentially takes the original Turrican and adds upon the formula, with improved graphics, a few little tweaks here and there, but generally it's a very similar game. It was very well received at the time of release, and I played it around the time it was released. I think I might have played the demo first, and yeah, it was the Amiga version I played as well. All I can safely say, I never got very far in it, and I absolutely sucked at it, and it is a pretty tough game, but yeah, I was also young and I sucked at it. So here on the Evercade is the first time I've actually finished the game, or even seen most of the levels. But I did really like it despite being crap at it. So the question is, how does it hold up now?
Graphics.
I think generally 16-bit graphics, or good 16-bit graphics, hold up pretty well regardless. And as I thought the original Turrican held up well, it's safe to say that this does. Although it builds upon the graphics of the first game, with better, more varied environments, good use of colour gradients on some of the backgrounds, and more detail all round. It was considered to be a good looking game on the Amiga when it came out, and yeah, I think it still holds up very well, even if some of the levels are very derivative, shall we say. There's no mistaking the influence or where the influence for the final stages came from, as well as having good environments and backgrounds, although one criticism I can have for some of the backgrounds is occasionally they can look a little bit too busy. One level in particular stood out in that regard for me. The enemies are generally good looking, and the bosses are often large and impressive. And the scrolling is smooth and everything moves well except for maybe the horizontally scrolling shoot 'em up sections. The scrolling on that, well, it's smooth but also not ideal. Again, it's more of a mechanical thing rather than graphics anyway. But the way some of the scrolling goes just doesn't really help with the gameplay or the difficulty of those sections, but again, that's more of a gameplay thing. So overall, like I said, it is an improvement on the first Turrican, which is already a good looking game, so yeah, good stuff.
Sound and music.
Much like the first Turrican, the sound and music are very good. The sound effects are suitably sci-fi and blastery-like, with some sort of good explosion sounds and things, as well as some nice clear speech. So they're all good on the sound front. The music, once again by Chris Hulsbeck, is generally very good. Naturally, some tracks are better than others, and on one or two levels it very much leans into atmosphere more than energetic synth type tunes, but it does work much better than the similar levels in the first game. And of course, being Chris Hulsbeck, some of the tracks are absolute bangers.
Gameplay.
Well, the gameplay is very similar to that of the first game. Large expansive levels, a time limit so you want to get a move on and find your way quite quickly, loads of hidden stuff, lots to shoot, death around every corner, and a few levels that mix things up. Although in this case it is horizontally scrolling sections where you're piloting a ship, and these are, well, they're a little bit reminiscent of Gradius or Gradius, whatever you want to call it, and these are probably the weakest part of the game for me. I mean, they're functional, but they're not great, and they can be quite challenging and can eat up your lives quite quickly, even more so than the rest of the game, or most of the rest of the game. The final stage that has some things that will just insta-kill you, and yeah, that'll eat through your lives as well. So either getting a lot of practice in and getting good, or abusing those save states will come in handy. The controls are responsive. The jumping, or rather the issue with the platforming and the jumping in some of the sections of the first game is repeated a little bit here, just the fact there are no jump through platforms, so you have to sort of jump to a platform directly above you occasionally, and that can be a little bit annoying, although it happens less here. Also, as in with the first game, some of the levels being very large and finding your way can be a little bit problematic and leads to some frustration, although generally I found it less of an issue than I did in the first game. But maybe it is more a case of being used to the sort of level design of the game. Now, the weapons from the first game are mostly carried across. You have your spread shot, your laser beam, your bounce shot, your 360 beam of death, and your morph ball, although there are some subtle changes. but the controls are still tight and responsive, and the weapons are satisfying to use. I mentioned earlier how the bosses are quite big and impressive looking, and they are, but they're not so impressive to fight. Most of them aren't overly challenging, and you could really rely on your big explosive type stuff or just your 360 beam laser to wipe them out. In fact, I beat most of the bosses quite easily first or second attempt.
Overall opinion.
Generally, I would say Turrican 2 is an improvement on the first game, although there are a few elements which I don't think work quite as well. But regardless, it is still a fun, very European style run and gun, exploration-y, platformer-y type thingy-what's-it. Just calling it a run and gun doesn't feel right. Mostly because when I think run and gun, I think Contra or Metal Slug or Midnight Resistance. Hell, I might even think Shock Troopers or Commando, something like that. What I don't think of is large Euro platformer style levels. But still, you know, it does have a lot of the key factors of such a game of a run and gun. So yeah, who cares? It's just a rough genre name anyway. So yes, Turrican 2 is still a very good game. Do I prefer it to the original? It's close, which I'll have to bear in mind when it comes to ranking it, so I might as well get on with that.
Ranking.
So to place it on my overall ranking list of every Evercade game ever, it's really quite simple. I'm placing it above Turrican but below Twin Cobra, placing it at 35 out of 369 games that I've ranked so far. So I think that's a wrap for this video. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.